80% of US jobs will have at least 10% of the tasks impacted by, in this case, generative AI. Yeah. Yeah, AI is about replicating sort of human intelligence. It might be replicating perceiving, seeing, hearing, reasoning, learning, and problem solving. But AI has sort of been broken into many branches. But there's a type of AI called narrow intelligence, which really focuses on a specific task or problem. So, for example, it could be focused on in the HR department reviewing CVs, or it could be reviewing MRI scans to detect cancer. That's sort of narrow AI intelligence. And then we've also got another view of AI, which is called artificial intelligence, and that gets a lot of the attention out there. And that's about creating machines that possess all of our human-like capabilities. They can do things like common sense, they can learn, and they almost become as intelligent across all of our cognitive abilities. But the past 10 years of AI has been interesting. It's been really focused on things like predictions. So predicting the right CV that will work in an organization, or predicting the MRI scan. But then what happened last December 2022 is OpenAI from San Francisco launched ChatGPT, and ChatGPT has sort of caught the public imagination. But what it is it's generative AI, and it moves from doing predictions to generating content. So generative AI, for example, can generate text, it can do images, it can do videos, it can even do things like music and knowledge management. And these tasks are what we as humans have considered really something that is unique to us. Our human nature is about creativity, and it became quite scary that suddenly these machines and ChatGPT and generative AI could do things that were really we thought were the preserve of us. So that's generative AI. But AI is really, in many respects, it's a technology, it's tools that is a general purpose technology that enables so many things. AI is an enabler. It enables you to do applications from marketing to sales to customer service. And AI enables you to build applications across industries from pharmaceuticals to financial services to technology to education. So AI is very much something that is going to be spread across industry, functions, technology, and society. Yeah, MapQuest was one of the first internet brands, and we launched that back in early 1996. And MapQuest, what it did is it provided an online mapping service where you could get driving directions. So how do I drive between Leicester and Colchester, for example? And also you could get a map by just typing in an address. So show me an address at a certain street location and things. And it really started to bring to life for so many people the power of internet. Everyone needs maps, everyone needs directions. It's a problem almost as old as time. But suddenly you could do this, just go onto internet, type in www.mapquest.com and get up a map and driving directions. And the reaction from people was just a sort of, wow, it's a really visceral response to it. And it brought to life the power of internet. But the challenge was back in 95, 96, there weren't that many users of the internet back there. There was maybe 40 million users globally. And then today there are over 5 billion users. But what happened is there were very few internet sites. So all of those users, early users, saw the power of MapQuest and started using it. So what happened is when we launched it, I remember being there at 6 a.m. on February the 5th, 1996, when we pushed the on button, and suddenly all of those users started coming to us, and we had this huge demand. And what happened is the service actually crashed on day one because we had so many people coming to it, even though there's a small population of internet users compared to today. So we ran out of bandwidth, our internet pipes weren't big enough. And then we ran out of computer power as well, because we needed a lot of computer power to actually draw the maps and put them back up on the internet. So we had a real scale problem back in the day, and we were actually launched it in the US in a small town called Lancaster, Pennsylvania, that's known for the Amish and the movie Witness, but it's not known for bandwidth and computers. So we actually had to move the company fairly quickly because there was so much demand for it. So we moved it to Denver, Colorado, where we could get pretty much unlimited computer bandwidth because all the train tracks went through Denver, and that's where all the telegraph wires were laid, and then all the telephone wires were laid, and then all the internet cables. So we were overwhelmed with demand and had to move the company and make sure we could keep the service going. But back in the early days as well, this was before Google's launched. It's when Yahoo and AOL and some of the early brand names were tiny companies. So back then, even getting staff who knew about the internet and computer programmers who knew about the internet was challenged because it was so new and it was the early frontier days. But it was exciting at the same time. Well, AI, you have to think of it, it's like a technology, it's like a tool. And always with tools, it can be used for good or there can be bad behind it. So we are seeing there's some real risks of AI that need to be managed. And broadly, there's sort of three buckets of risk. So for example, integrity and trust. Generative AI in particular, one of the things we worry about is when you ask it questions, you prompt it, you interact with it, it's not a truth engine. So it can come up with factual errors and what people often call hallucinations. It doesn't necessarily tell you the truth, but it sounds truthful because the answers to ChatGPT and other generative AI services are so well formed and sensitive. But you also got other things with the models, that inequality and unfairness. The models are often biased because the models are built and trained on human data from companies. And guess what? Humans are biased and companies are often biased. So if you get the machines to mirror human bias from organizations, then they mirror that and amplify it. So we do have issues around bias. And then increasingly with generative AI, we're getting deep fakes and misinformation. So there's some real issues there. We also legal and regulatory issues around it, a lot of copyright issues. There's issues around safety, especially in things like autonomous vehicles on our streets. And then we've got some bigger issues and risks associated with socioeconomic. The computer power that's required to run generative AI technologies and models has a large carbon footprint. And we also worry about jobs. Will there be job losses from automation of AI? So, integrity and trust, we worry about legal and regulatory issues, socio-economic issues. But the good news is the world has recognized, there's a lot of good to come from AI, but let's also get sensible about managing that risk. So we've got government. It's become a government and political issue, AI, because it's entered the public discourse. So you're seeing in the EU, for example, this year, the EU AI Act was passed to help manage the risks of AI. In the UK, we have AI regulation at the sector specific. So the medical regulators will regulate AI in the medical field and the financial service. China, for example, has banned deep fakes that can undermine economic security and stability in this country. And the US is also starting to think harder at the federal level across all of the 50 states what it needs to do to regulate. And big tech, the Googles of the world, the Microsofts of the world, are also signing up to voluntary good practices around AI, safe AI. And what those practices are is typically you need principles on how you as a company would deliver and run your AI systems. You need to make sure that it's safe, it's fair, it's accountable to humans. And underlying this is a need for trust. Is how do you explain and make transparent, open the black box of AI and explain to the world how your algorithms work? And that's what we as consumers and society want, is tell us how it works and reassure us how it's safe. So you're starting to see companies adopt these principles. That's being put into policies and then into practices. So as the technology is being built by the techies and the data scientists and the data engineers, they are adhering to models to make sure the data is statistically fair, the models are tested to safety. So these issues are becoming more aware. Companies are proactively adopting these best practices. And I think it makes a lot of sense because every company is becoming a digital company, and every company now needs to worry about digital trust. And instead of waiting for regulators, companies can actually build um, build trust with their stakeholders, from customers to users and society, by being on the front foot, adopting these principles, policies, and practices, and putting hands up and saying, we do technology and AI, but we do it safely because we want you to trust us. Yeah, AI is definitely going to have an impact on our daily working lives. I mean, AI will be woven into the fabric of our functions, our tasks, our industries, and it will be absolutely sort of sprinkled everywhere. And there was a recent report coming out, I think it was from the University of Pennsylvania, OpenAI, which OpenAI are the authors of ChatGPT. And they looked at the US job market, and what they said is 80% of US jobs will have at least 10% of the tasks impacted by, in this case, generative AI. And then they said 19-20% of workers across all of the US will have at least 50% of their tasks impacted. So from 10% to up to 50%. So this means the tasks, and we do many, many daily tasks, many different things. We do a bit of this, we do a bit of that, we do that. It means that everything and everyone will have some level of impact. But the best way of thinking about, in this case, generative AI, is it's really a tool to help us with our creative activities and our knowledge-based activities. So when we're writing an email, when we're writing a response for a proposal or bid proposal, or when we're writing a report or researching something or answering questions for a colleague, these are all sort of creative and knowledge tasks. And what generative AI is very good at is a first draft. So let's write the first draft of a one-page report. It's very good at doing that first draft. And then it's easy for us as humans to be a critic and edit it. It's harder to be a creator. So we start to work alongside these generative AI tools. They almost become what's called a co-pilot. They're sitting there with us, helping us create the first draft, come up with information. We will edit it, we will review it, we will make sure that it's correct and factually correct, because sometimes it sounds correct, but it doesn't necessarily is correct. And so I think we'll see these tools sitting alongside us. It's co-pilot tools. It could be in marketing, it could be in the technology department, it could be in the finance department, it could be absolutely anywhere. And what's interesting is I think we will see that these co-pilots will probably, in the next year or two, I wouldn't be surprised to see that there are 1 billion users. Of the 7 billion people across the planet, 1 billion will be using it, because these tools are going to be integrated into the tools that we use on a daily basis in the workforce, in our Microsoft Office 365, in our Google Documents, in our Slack, Salesforce tools. So it's going to be woven into it. But what's really interesting is the narrative around AI is, AI is bad, almost dystopian, it's going to take all our jobs, or AI is utopian, it's going to solve the world's problems, cancer, environment, that sort of thing. But I think what's really interesting about generative AI is the people are starting to use it, and the studies say we're actually enjoying it. This makes our jobs more interesting. The reason is it helps us. It helps us to do things that we often find difficult, like writing or coming up with a report and things. So it's really actually exciting to see how these tools are becoming our co-pilots and are being viewed with something we want to use as opposed to something that we're afraid of. Yeah, I mean, I've been involved with AI of my whole career, and there is a lot of noise around it. There's been a lot of hype and disappointment. But what I want to do is really help demystify AI so it becomes more accessible. And I want to pull away from the fear, the hype, and actually explain what's real and what's not, what's important, how do you go about doing it, why you should embrace it now, what you should do to be successful or not successful. And I want companies, business people, society, governments to understand the opportunities and the challenges of AI, and really to encourage people to embrace the future that's going to come from this technology. Because at the end of the day, I believe that AI and technology can be a force for good for society. But to ensure that we embrace it and it becomes that force to good, we need to embrace it safely. And so that we'll help businesses, societies, and government to help address real problems. It will help businesses become more efficient, societies to become more successful. We will start to address things like healthcare and democratize healthcare, education, and things. And another angle of this is, in particular, I want to see the UK become an AI powerhouse. And it's because I am British, and I do think we have such an opportunity in the UK to build on our sort of legacy of technology and AI to build a better society overall.